Hello, everyone. I would love to invite my fellow panelists to join me on stage. Okay, so thank you, David. It's great to be here in paradise, as you like to say. All good. We're here to talk about a very important topic. I'm dying to hear the results of that poll. So I don't know if we're going to have it at the end of this or we'll have it at some point. But you know, as an industry, when we talk about how to build an inclusive company and an inclusive industry, we tend to focus on the numbers. But I think we all know that creating an inclusive and equitable industry is so much more than the numbers. We must focus literally on every aspect of how we do what we do. And at the Ad Council, we have a framework that we use that helps us think about and track how we're doing across all of the areas that we think are important. And if it's helpful, I'll just share it. It's workforce, workplace, marketplace, and community. Workforce is where we look to measure everything across the full employee life cycle. Workplace is all the work we do to create an inclusive culture. Marketplace are the partners that we work with, the suppliers that we work with, and all the things you would put into that category. And then finally, community. How do we work with members of the communities that we serve? Now, why does it even matter? I don't think I need to say this, but just to sort of level set us, I'm going to say it. Research consistently shows that consumers prefer companies who clearly demonstrate prioritizing DEI. In fact, 59% of consumers are actually more trusting of brands when they see themselves represented. And the data goes on and on. So I'm super excited to dig into this topic with my esteemed panel and learn from them because they're doing great work. Christena, Michele, Lauren are really playing a very meaningful role in their companies to advance this for themselves, their companies, and our industry. So we should just jump in. Why don't we quickly let each of you introduce yourselves, and then we'll get right to it. Christena, you want to start?
Yeah, we have about 20 minutes. I'll be brief. I'm Christena Pyle. I'm the Chief Equity Officer at dentsu in the Americas. This is my first IAB ALM conference, and you guys tend to do it just a little bit better. So I'll be back. Thank you for having me.
Michele?
I'm Michele Fino. I'm the head of branded entertainment at Crackle, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I live in New York City. I'm also excited to be here for the next 2 days. Not that I don't miss my kids. I do miss my kids, but definitely glad to be up here with you guys.
Great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Weinberg. I am the Chief Marketing and Communication Officer at Square. And for anyone that doesn't know Square, Square is a global commerce and technology company that empowers businesses all over the world, helps them start, run, and grow.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's jump right in. Christena, I'm going to start with you, and the sort of the overall category that we're going to talk about first is really this focus on, you know, to create a more inclusive industry, we really have to start with our own, keeping our own house in order, if you will. It's sort of an inside-out strategy. So you're at dentsu. You have been at Time's Up. You've been at Ad Color. You've been doing this work and looking to create more equity and inclusion for a long time. As we think about 2023, what are some of the things that are keeping you up at night, and what are you doing to think about how to define success for 2023?
Well, January has already felt like a really busy year. So there's a lot, you know, I think a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals are looking ahead at the year, and we're a little bit concerned. Like all of us, we're concerned. We're tracking recession, inflation, you know, clients retracting their budgets, people clamping down on resources. We're seeing the tech companies lay off, 10,000 people here, 3,000 people here. So those same concerns and trepidations play out for diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals who know that moments like this, people need belonging at your company more, and they tend to lean into the business resource groups, the DEI team. So I challenge everybody in these moments where there's a knee jerk to retract on budgets and resources to actually lean in or stay consistent with your investment in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because the last time that we were here was just at the start of COVID. It was just before George Floyd. And there's retracted budgets, there's retracted staff, and there was a complete swing back. People couldn't find leadership and representation fast enough. There was financial damage to having to staff up that quickly. There's also reputational damage to your company with your consumers and with your internal employees. So I don't sleep, similarly to the worries you have, but I'm asking you guys to stay consistent with your investment or start your investment if you haven't done so already.
Awesome, thank you. So Michele, you are in the branded entertainment business, you know, you have to mix the art and the science of that medium, and I would love, of storytelling really, so I would love to understand and maybe help us understand some of the most impactful ways you and your team are baking sort of this notion of inclusivity, you know, into the work that you do and how you think about that and tying it to business objectives.
Sure. I think I would like to say that we all have the best intentions, right? But I hope that some of the things that have happened over the last couple of years had us really put meat behind that intentionality, right? And not only just stating and everybody can change their company logo black or rainbow in the month of June, but how do you actually invest, you know, time, human resource, and media investment, content investment to telling those stories and giving those stories a platform. So it could be, you know, a show that we have on Crackle right now called Inside the Black Box, which is established black actors and actresses like Felicia Rashad and Wendell Pierce, literally holding the elevator open for the next generation of black talent to showcase their talent. So it's greenlighting and enabling more stories like that.
Fantastic, and I think one of the things you mentioned, you know, sort of changing the colors of your logo to, I mean, that sort of symbol, I think, is often tagged as performative if you don't back it up with real action. So that's super helpful. Thank you. You know, I think that becoming an inclusive organization, I think, agree is critical for innovation and growth. But the fact of the matter is changing attitudes and behaviors and culture is hard work. You just can't sort of check it off the to-do list, if you will. And I think we've all found probably that it's this journey of learning, listening, iterating, and trying again. And so our head of DEI at the Ad Council talks about it as, you know, a bunch of type A's that are ready to rush to the finish line. Progress over perfection. And Lauren, I would love for you to talk a bit about, you know, what's going on at Square and how you're prioritizing DEI and the impact that it's had on your organization.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think a really good point. So for us at Square, I don't think it would be surprising to say that we're a very data-driven organization. And in the same way that we look at data to understand how our campaigns are performing or the business, we have a lot of data that helps us understand how we're doing from a D&I perspective. So we get monthly dashboards that tell us just the composition of our team, but not just that. We look at retention. We look at the engagement results specifically by those employees. Like, we know that we're doing better about hiring, but that's not enough. We also need to make sure that we are creating a really great environment and we're retaining employees. And when we do our biannual engagement surveys, we cut the data by different groups and make sure that we don't see any disparity between different groups within the organization. And a lot of managers, myself included at the company, are really held accountable for those results. So when we get our reviews at the end of the year, this data is incorporated into the rubric that the managers use to say, are you doing a good job of really fostering those behaviors? So I think for us, It's definitely a long journey. It does not happen overnight, but I am really proud of the way that Square does it because I think we really hold people accountable, not just for hiring great talent, but for making sure that that talent is supported once they come into the organization.
I'm just curious because we're talking a lot about this as well. Do you actually tie that accountability into incentives?
Sort of, yes, because it goes into your annual performance review.
Got it.
So it's part of your review. And so if your review is, we don't have a bonus structure at Square.
Right.
But it will factor into just like what merit increase you're able to get and also like equity awards that are given out. Yeah.
We do. We tie ESG measures, including carbon output and emissions, and gender into our performance measurement, and we're working on adding a layer around race and other prisms of representation, and I become very popular during performance evaluation.
I bet you do.
They're like, what are we doing and how are we going to reach those numbers? And so it is an important step, and when you're really taking it seriously and holding people accountable is when it shows up in our bonuses.
Fantastic. Can you just spend a minute on the philosophy that you have at Dentsu, which I really love, and it's sort of consistent with progress over perfection, of a race without a finish?
Yes, that's actually, I'm quoting my CEO, Jackie Kelly, who's obsessed with DEI. I have another CEO in the audience, Doug Rosen, in Dentsu Media. He's obsessed with DEI. They're obsessed with it because it is a competitive advantage in business and for your people. And then, so we talk about, some people ask me, if you're good at your job, will you work yourself out of a job? And I say, I need this job. I have bills, so I need this job. And it's a race without a finish line, to your point. You said that quote. It's who's left out on the fringes and who doesn't feel like they belong in our industries and at work changes. It changes daily. It changes from generation to generation. Right now, we know that we're not really considering for aging people in the workplace. This is a huge issue that we're not giving enough airtime to. We're also not giving enough airtime to people without four-year degrees who have insane amounts of talent and want to break through into our media companies and our advertising agencies, but they just don't have that decorated four-year degree. So right now, we might be thinking about diversity myopically. When we think about it wider, it's a race without a finish line, and I'm gonna still have my job.
There you go.
I have to reflect it in TV shows. There you go.
Yeah.
Do you wanna comment on that too?
But I just think back to, being 29 and producing American Idol in 2005, which means you can all now do the math and figure out how old I am, but that's fine. Sitting in the studio audience and knowing that I had to go back to New York and work with Coca-Cola, Ford Motor, and AT&T, and I wasn't working with their diversity budgets, but I'm watching the stage, and it's LaToya London, Jennifer Hudson, and Fantasia Barrino. That was just who the best singers were. It was just reflective of America at that time.
Right, exactly. And I think when you can see yourself on a platform like that so broadly, it's sort of, if you can see it, you can be it. I think that's also a part of this too, and our obligation to make sure that the content we're creating is honestly and accurately, without stereotype, representing people.
Absolutely.
I just want to jump on the idea of looking at people's skills versus their degrees when we think about hiring them. We actually just launched a campaign at the Ad Council focused on exactly that. There are 70 million people in the United States that are, we call them stars. They're skilled through alternative routes. And they have incredible experience, and they're highly competent. The algorithms online screen them out automatically if they don't have a college degree. And so there's a big push to really think about how we open up our hiring practices to include folks and really look at their skills. And it's also a diversity issue. It's an equity issue. Because folks, unfortunately, of the 70 million, they over-index from communities of color. And so I'm just curious if any of your companies are focused on thinking about eliminating degree requirements. And I think for all of you in this room would love for you to be thinking about that too, because it's a very simple thing to do. You know, if I asked a question, when you think about all of the skills that you have, how much of them did you learn in college? Okay, I rest my case.
Another signal that we have to track, without being political, is overturning affirmative action at universities, which will have impact on the diversity of universities, which has impact on the talent pipeline that we hire from, because we look at 4-year degrees above anything else. So we have to track things, and you asked me what's keeping me up at night. That is very much keeping me up at night. And we might all have to over-index on your STAR talent, which I'm now going to steal that acronym.
You may. We would love for you to do that.
This panel's all about stealing.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought about that?
We have thought about it. We have removed that criteria for some of the roles of
Sure.
Square, but I think that I like your acronym a lot too. I'm going to borrow that for Square as well, but I would say we need to do more.
Okay, great. And I would encourage all of you to think about that too. You can get some incredible talent, and they are they're very ready to work, and I think they would do great jobs. So let's stay on the topic of accountability. So, you know, we just came out of, you know, one of the worst periods I can remember between COVID and after the murder of George Floyd and the racial reckoning that took place. And so many companies made significant commitments of the things that they were going to do to deal with race specifically. But I think to broaden that, it's really to deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now that, you know, we're here in sunny Florida, things are feeling a little bit better. Yes, there's a recession looming, but there's not as much pressure. You know, it's not as much of a heated environment as it was. I'm worried. The thing that keeps me up at night is that, are people going to fulfill their commitments? And so I would love to have each of you talk very briefly about how we can continue to hold ourselves accountable to those commitments and perhaps hold others accountable as well. Who wants to go first?
Everyone looked at me. It's just because you went first last time.
It's because I do this for my day job?
Exactly.
Okay. I share in your concern about keeping our commitments, and you mentioned there's not that pressure right now, and there's some other factors that we're looking at. There's other letters that we have to memorize, ESG, and I think there's really a lack of education around ESG, the environment, the social and the governance, and how the relationship between DEI and ESG and CSR and all the letters that we have to commit to learning. And then staring at 2024, we're up in an election year. And during election years, there's a lot of racial tension. There's a lot of tension around gender issues and women's issues. So if we fall asleep at work on our commitments around D&I, we're going to be having these conversations that play out at home and that play out in other spaces. They're going to play out at work again. And we're going to be ill-equipped to be able to have conversations with our first consumer, which is our employees, and then our consumers, who have a rapidly changing sentiment around a lot of these issues that we feel like are political, that they feel like are essential. So these are some of the things I'm concerned about, a waning commitment.
Michele, thoughts on that?
I'd say everyone loves a good, especially given the room that we're in, a good marketing funnel, right? So you've got, it's actually kind of out of order, but diversity, inclusion, equity. Equity is the true goal, right, at the bottom of the funnel. But even before diversity, you've got tolerance and acceptance and awareness, education. And what's a better way to educate everyone than sharing our stories, right? So how do we make sure that the stories that we're creating and that we're enabling are reflective of what's actually going on? And also be mindful not to be too echo chambery. You know, I don't just join AAPI, ERGs, that was a lot of acronyms, but lots of acronyms all over this room. So, you know, it's what's going on in the Jewish community. Like if Asian women are getting pushed on the subway tracks, you know, people are walking into churches and synagogues with guns. So it's like, how are we aware, and especially because now, more than ever, my children, I'm no longer my children's first source of information. They get that from their phone, just as we do when we all roll over and turn the alarm off. Right. But they still have questions. So how are we the sounding board for those discussions? And everything is not just finite.
Got it. Awesome. Lauren, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I would say, so what's interesting about Square in particular is that our mission is really all about economic empowerment. And so a lot of these things I feel like are just very core to what we do and why everyone is there. And it really starts for us at the top with Jack and him sort of sending the message that that's really important. And so I feel like it shows up in a lot of different ways. It shows up in the talent that we hire. Certainly for us, we're moving to like a remote workplace has been hugely beneficial in terms of enabling us to really hire people from all over. We want divergent perspectives at the table. It's better for business. Those groups of people represent what our customers look like. And so for all of the reasons that everybody talks about, like that's just been better for us. And then I'll just kind of comment on what Michele was saying, which is at Square, we have a really long history, which is kind of ironic for a fintech company, in storytelling. And really telling stories about the role that businesses play in their community. We've had a series called Black Owned. We now have a series that we're doing, we started last year that will continue this year, where it's called Only In, and we focus on a specific city. So we did Only in Austin and Only in Denver. Austin was a story of queer business owners. Denver was Latinx business owners. And we really try to shine a spotlight on different groups, the things that they're doing, to really, I think, just to kind of build them up, but also just to show other people, like, it's not just that they're running a business. A lot of these people play a really important role in their community. And so we try to use our platform to give each of them a much bigger platform and stage.
I love that. I think we all have the opportunity to use our platforms for good in that way. So we have a minute left. I want to do a lightning round. Last question, end on a positive note. So it's January. It's been a long year. January's been a long year, as you said. But we can still sort of predict and think about the year. What is energizing you? What are you excited about, encouraged about as you look ahead for 2023?
I think the younger staff who on day one want to be CEOs, but also have like really strong values that are aligned to our consumer values. So it's a window into our consumer values. I think they're accelerating this change in the workplace a little bit faster, making my job a little bit easier.
Great.
Yeah.
I have to go next. Let's see. Well, we talked about this on our pre-call, but one of the before COVID, BC, I went to an event and the guest speaker was the chief storytelling officer at Pixar. And he said all brainstorms, all meetings at Pixar, there's one page of a deck that goes up on the screen. And it's literally just 2 words, which are what if. What if our toys came alive when we weren't in the room? What if superheroes couldn't be super? And I like using this year as a what if kind of ramp. What if we cured cancer? What if everybody in this country that could voted? What if we...
What if this stage was smaller?
Yeah, what if this stage was smaller? So yeah, what if a company that manufactures and sells tampons and panty liners only spent their marketing and content budget at a company and with a producer telling female stories produced by females. We're the ones that have to spend $11,000 a year on tampons and panty liners.
There's like a few snaps.
But and on and on. So that's the challenge I give myself and everybody else is what
Fantastic.
If.
Lauren, bring us home.
I know we're out of time already, so I'll just say that, it's going to be an interesting year. I've said to my team, it's kind of reminiscent of 2020, so just get ready to be really agile. But the good news is that we know how to do it. And I think for us, going into this year, we're more focused than ever on the things that are really important to us. Multicultural is really important to us. And so in some ways, with more constraint, it gives us more license to say no. And so I actually feel really excited about that because I think we can double down on the things that are really important and we have no choice but to say no. And I think that's going to be really great for us.
Fantastic. So These women are doing great work. Let's give them a huge round of applause.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.